You're watching Total Carp Fishing TV, and today's video is going to be another Gemini rig video, and this one is going to be a variation of the Ronnie rig. It's a very popular rig, and this variation is one that I actually use myself, and it's utilising the tidy booms for Ronnie rigs, but the low level version. Now, Gemini have two different Ronnie rig varieties. You've got the standard Ronnie rig and then the low level version, and the only real difference between the two is the fact that these have the spinner swivel fused directly onto a loop of the fluorocarbon boom, whereas the standard version has a ring swivel version. So that's got a little bit of extra movement, a little bit more height, and as the name suggests, the low level version, because it's fused directly onto the loop, it's a little bit lower to the bottom. So I'm going to tie this up as a really low pop-up, which is perfect for fishing either over spreads of boilies, but also over things like particles and spod mixers where the fish are hoovering around close to the bottom, and that pop-up is really low, so they're going to suck it in as they're hoovering up all those different particles. So let's crack on with a little bit more information about the booms themselves and then how to tie it up. So as with all the tidy booms, you've got 3 booms on each of the packages, and these consist of a 30-pound fluorocarbon boom material, which is fused at 2 ends. You've got a loop at one end for attaching to your lead arrangement, and then the other end has the various components. In this case, as I mentioned already, it's got a spinner swivel on there. Now there's 3 different lengths of these. You've got 5.5 inches, 7 inches and 9 inches to suit a variety of different circumstances. And what you end up with is a really neat rig that's exactly the same every time you tie it up. So let's run through now how to tie it. So to tie up the Gemini low level Ronnie, what you'll need is, of course, a pack of the Gemini low level Ronnie rig tidy booms. You'll also need your choice of hook. I've gone for a size 4 wide gape. Now normally I use sort of like a medium curved style hook, but with one of these low level Ronnies, I've decided to go for quite a short shank hook so it sits nice and close to the bottom. You can achieve similar sort of rigging mechanics by cranking around the shrink tubing on the hook as well, so it spins nice and quickly. So these are the hooks that I'm going to use for this one. Then also got some form of bait mounting, so I've gone for a bait screw here, a hook bead, which is going to stop your bait mounting choice from coming off the hook itself. You're then also going to need a bit of shrink tube and a lighter to cover up that join between the components. So the first job is to just take one of these tidy booms off the piece of paper. It's just stuck on with a few little sticky bits, so we'll take those off as well, because you don't want those on the rig. As you can see there, the boom itself comes out perfectly straight. Really neat. Those fuses on the fluorocarbon are not only neater than any knot that you're going to tie, but they're also much stronger as well, retaining the full strength of the actual boom material itself. I'm then going to take my hook and a bit of shrink tube, pop the shrink tube just over the eye of the hook, all nice and simple. I'm then going to pass the hook eye onto the crook of the spinner swivel so that the crook is on the outside. I'm just going to pull that shrink tube just over the top. Now, some people prefer to take the shrink tube all the way onto the barrel of the swivel, but I personally like to just have it as far down but without reaching the actual barrel itself. And the reason I like to do this is that you've then got the rotation of the swivel at the hook end as well as the rotation of the swivel at the boom end as well. So you've got double the amount of rotation in there. So next up, and keeping the boom well away from the lighter, I'm going to basically wet this bit of tubing and then take a lighter, run it over the tubing to shrink that down. Now by wetting it, that's actually going to stop you from burning the tubing itself. It's going to help sort of that constrict down around the components. So I've got a little jet lighter here and just run over it, making sure that I'm moving along. Staying, like I say, well away from the fluorocarbon. And what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to crank that round at a nice sort of 45-degree angle so that the swivel is in line with the point of the hook. And what you can see there is that that actually kicks the hook over, so that as the bottom lip of the fish hits that angle, that hook's going to flip around and catch hold every time. So next up, take your bait screw, put that on, and then your hook bead. Slide that on too. Now when it comes to positioning the hook bead, I personally think with pop-ups it should sit nice and high up the shank, not all the way around the top, but you see some people have it further down here, and whilst that holds it over at a really nice angle like that, I think sometimes the hooking properties aren't quite as good. So I like to have it sort of up on the corner of the shank there. And that's pretty much your rig done. You've then just got to put the bait on, and if required you can wrap a bit of putty around the fuse on the boom. So I'll do that first. Gives you a bit of an anchor point for your putty. I'll just wrap it around one way, wrap it around the other way, and then just mould it together. And if you warm up that putty, if it's quite hard to sort of wrap around, sometimes if you just warm it up over a kettle or even between your fingers for a little bit first until it goes nice and soft, once you've wrapped it up, just dunk it in the margins into a bit of cold water, and that actually sets that putty nice and hard as well. So that's a nice little tip there so that your putty doesn't sort of fall off. Really nice and neat, super simple, really easy to change hook, and super effective too. So I'm just going to get one of these little pop-ups, just simply poke it on, and screw it into place. It's really quite hard to get much more simple than that. Like I said, as the fish's lip comes across and it goes to suck it in, you can see that no matter what angle it comes at, that hook's going to spin and catch hold, and where it doesn't have that ring, it's going to sit really nice and close to the bottom like that, which means that as they're eating small particles, that hook's just going to fly up into the fish's mouth. So there you go, that is the Gemini Tidy Boom for low-level ronnies. If you're interested in this rig or any other rigs that you can tie with the Gemini components, you can check out the full range on the Gemini website, www.geminicarptackle.com.